what you think we are here for in 2025 from the AI perspective. Everyone is talking about the AI.
So AI is an interesting two letters that I think are the most overused potentially letters in 2023, 2024.
What is the main key impact that you think can AI put on this?
AI needs data as a feeder. Based on the way today's models work, there's a learning curve that takes place. Whereas you learn from the data, your model accuracy, your model maturity is going to evolve.
We talk about the AI co-pilots. We are not talking about the AI pilots. What is your take on this?
Early evolution, so it is a co-pilot. You do need some level of effect, whether it is for validating the results or it is to make sure that you're fine-tuning the model. That evolution will eventually lead to self.
Organizations are comfortable to put their data on the model providers.
Once you know your data, once you understand and classify it properly for its use, not use, then the next step is to understand who has access to it. And once you understand who has access to it, making sure that that access ties into the model. Because at the end, models are created by human beings. So which department is creating the model? Is it an SLM model? Is it an LLM model? Is it homegrown? Is it taking open source and then building on it? And then based on that, what's its use determines who should have access.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to my next podcast. Today, we have a person in this podcast. With him, we are going to discuss about the advantages, AI advantages on data profiling, data management. And the guest we have today is having the industry experience of near about 25 years plus. He has worked with for 20% of the Fortune 100 companies, top 20% of the international banks. He's worked with data management itself and the data securities. So the guest is Mr. Piyush Mehta, who has who's the founder and director, CEO and director of Data Dynamics, working closely with the data security and the management. So welcome, Piyush. Welcome to my podcast.
Thanks, Antrixsh, for having me here. It's a pleasure to be here on your podcast with you. When you said 25 years, I realized how old I am. So,
Right. Okay. So, Piyush, before we start the actual things to discuss about the data management, data profiling, securities, what you think we are here for in 2025 from the AI perspective? Everyone is talking about the AI, but in your terms, what it is exactly?
so AI is an interesting two letters that I think are the most overused potentially letters in 2023, 2024. Ever since ChatGPT came out, it's kind of changed the way we've thought about technology and data. When you think about AI, think about the internet in the 90s. We're in the early stages of the evolution. And although there's a lot of interest, there's a lot of front page headlines. You have world leaders as recently as yesterday and today in Paris finalizing certain agreements around how AI should be governed and managed. It's still early and it's going to mature over the coming years. And the key is that we learn through the journey as the technology evolves.
Right. So, if we talk more onto the AI side, what are the main things that you consider to start for any organization? Those who are working or having the large unstructured data. It can be anything. It can be documents, pension, healthcare documents, it can be. So, what is the main key impact that you think can AI put on this?
So I would say a couple of things. First of all, AI needs data as a feeder. Based on the way today's models work, there's a learning curve that takes place. Whereas you learn from the data, your model accuracy, your model maturity is going to evolve. In terms of where AI is, the biggest use case today is automating regular tasks that you could take advantage of AI and mitigate the need for whether it's human labor or it's algorithmic driven decision making and use AI as an enabler. If you look at L1 interaction with people, there's a lot of that today is done with leveraging intelligence as an interactive factor. So these are the type of things that ease you into the process of leveraging AI within the organization, and something that a lot of people have been putting into place where they can automate some subsection of their environment and the tasks that go on with it.
Right. So on the next part of it, if we are talking onto the automations, right? If our AI models input data that the model has trained on, if it is clean, it's a good, right? We get a very good output. It is a kind of a garbage in garbage route. If we are using for training our data on less security, we'll get the less accuracy. It's as simple as that. So suppose if organizations are working onto the unstructured data, how problem can be solved? Because enterprise organizations has this problem statement to managing the unstructured data as well along with the AI.
What I would say is unstructured data today makes up between 70 and 80% of an organization's overall data landscape, regardless of vertical and industry. That continues to increase as a percentile because the large component of data growth is in the unstructured space, whether it's user-driven and created or it's application-driven and created, including IoT device. As you see that come into play, a key aspect is understanding what you have as a beginning point. So as I said, data is the feeder into AI, but that feeder has to be understood, put properly in terms of classification, right to use, not to use. So there's many aspects that need to come in. The first thing in most enterprises is to understand the data that you have, make sure that you can actually classify it for use by AI models, not for use, because there are certain things that may be too business-centric or have personal information that you cannot share into the model based on the model you're using and where that data is going to be fed. So understanding and cleansing that is a key first step. And I think a lot of enterprises are still in that journey, that how do I cleanse the mountains of data that have existed for years or decades before I even get to the process of leveraging it. And remember, because it's the feeder, if you don't cleanse it, like you said, garbage in, garbage out. And I think that's a big challenge. The question becomes, how soon will we evolve where that garbage in, garbage out moves to that next stage and phase?
So next thing is on the AI. We talk about the AI co-pilots, right? We are not talking about the AI pilots. What is your take on this? Is there any soon the things where the AI can done the entire things for you? Or do you think it is going to be hand to hand with the human brain as well?
So I'll answer that and then ask you a counter question.
All right.
What I would say is, as I mentioned, early evolution. So it is a co-pilot. Why is it a co-pilot? Because you do need some level of human intervention.
Right.
Whether it is for validating the results or it is to make sure that you're fine-tuning the model.
Right.
That evolution will eventually lead to piloting itself.
Right.
The question I will ask you is, how soon do you think that piloting will happen? Because you are the expert on creating models.
Right.
And you are working with people like Google and others. So what are you seeing them do on the LLM side that will mitigate the need to have a co-pilot?
Okay, if you talk from my perspective, I think 100% cannot be accurate anything, right? So always if we need to reach at that particular level, we need the human interventions to validate it.
Yeah.
Right now, suppose if someone is generating the code for their development work or someone is using OpenAI APIs to build some applications, they can give you the boilerplates. But for kind of a human brain knowledge and the logical building that's required, that always needs the human brain. That is my take on that. And if I give you the answer by when we can do the entire thing with the AI, I have a doubt till 2030. We need more and more data, more and more large language models that can think deeply as human brain can think and correlate each and every instances that we.
So what you're basically saying is, from going from the initial evolution of sapiens to where we are today, the tens of thousands of years that it's taken,
Right.
You're going to accelerate that through AI because of the automation. but it's an evolution in a similar
In
way.
your initial questions, you said it's kind of an internet evaluation
Yeah.
era, right? It takes 25, 24 hours to be more evaluated.
Yeah.
But I don't think AI will take that much of years to complete, to reach at that particular era. It's quite fast in today's time. We can see the people can build a few pilot applications with the APIs, write the code, solve their problems, testing the codes, identify the bugs in the code. So as a point of a developer, I'm just giving you simple these examples. But if we talk about the data security sides, we talk about the data management side. What do you think on that? The organizations are comfortable to put their data on the other model providers?
So when we go into customers, especially enterprise customers, the first question we're asked about our software, Zubin, is around whether or not it has LLM built into it.
Okay.
If it does, there's more scrutiny. There's a pause. Because there's a concern of whether anything goes back to mothership. Although there's always a, hey, it doesn't, there's always an asterisk that everybody has that let me reconfirm, let me re-verify.
Right.
So there is a hesitation, yet a curiosity to want to use models. And again, that's why I say it's infancy. We're in the teething stages of this process.
All right.
Over the coming 2 to 3 years, that hesitation will negate even further because it's going to become more commonplace.
Right.
What I will say about data security is the same thing I said earlier. Once you know your data, once you understand and classify it properly for its use, not use, then the next step is to understand who has access to it. And once you understand who has access to it, making sure that that access ties into the models.
Right.
Because at the end, models are created by human beings.
Exactly.
So which department is creating the model? Is it an SLM model? Is it an LLM model? Is it homegrown? Is it taking open source and then building on it? And then based on that, what's its use determines who should have access.
Right.
And the underlying question is, should that data be accessible by that model?
Right.
That's the trust that you have to figure out. I think we're in the early stages of it, but I do believe that companies are now looking to make sure that they understand what the data is and who has access to it, and then ensuring that the models that should have access are given access, and those that shouldn't start to be told that, hey, you need to clarify whether you really need the access.
All right. So we are talking about the data access, right? So do you think that data storage is also a problem statement here?
So storage is evolving. Maybe it's gaining a new definition than before.
Okay.
Before, storage was more around resiliency, availability, replication from a disaster recovery standpoint, especially after certain times that have taken place, such as the 9/11 attacks, and then the evolution of DR since then, the backup processes that exist in the storage, lifecycle management.
Right.
What you're seeing now is two things come into play. Because data is so relevant to AI, data is kept in storage devices. So now storage devices gain greater importance. And by that, I mean performance. How well are they able to keep up to the SLAs and the demands of the models that are running?
Right.
Because now you're not running a few million data points or files. You're running in billions.
Billions, exactly.
The land grab by AI requires that that data be properly categorized, understood, but then also requires the underlying storage to be appropriately allocated. The complexity to it is a hybrid cloud. You have multiple clouds. You have local storage. You have storage in AWS, Google, Alibaba, Microsoft. The question becomes making sure, are the models touching data across the landscape? Are they touching it in a particular location? What's important from my perspective and what we're seeing with enterprises is ensuring the SLA is met, but also having the right data in the right place when you need it to run the model.
Right.
And that requires an understanding of policy management that can go drive and dictate that. Because the model is only as good as the data it's fed, but the data today is spread across multiple silos. So the question becomes, which silo do I use? And will the data be there for what I need to do? The way storage vendors are now starting to address it, is by making sure that the speed at which the response time happens, the access and intelligence they're building in. Companies like VAST, Veka, and others are building next-gen storage to actually meet the needs, right, of the AI world. Older vendors, such as Dell and NetApp and HP and Hitachi and others, IBM, are also now evolving their storage to meet the needs of the AI world, both from a response time availability, as well as the sheer robustness of the platforms that you need to store on. You're talking, today, when you say an enterprise has 10, 20 petabytes, it's considered normal.
Okay.
It's not something that's, oh my God, We're talking to customers that on average have 60 to 80 petabytes plus of primary storage.
Okay.
Backup and everything gets into the exabyte world.
Right.
And then, and that's just the beginning. And as data grows at 30, 40% year over year, you can imagine the multiple sprawl that creates.
Yes. My next question was on that particular part. When we are talking about the storage, enterprise organizations care about their storage, their securities and everything. Do also they have the SLAs key? Suppose if they are processing some data for AI, sometimes limitations they also have right now, and how we are solving it.
So when we look at the AI world, there's two things to consider when you think about storage. First of all, people think of AI and models, and you're probably more familiar than I am. It's not a single model running at a time.
Right.
We had a customer we were talking to, they're creating 50 models a day. The proliferation of number of models itself
Right.
is becoming a question. So when you think about number of models, multiply that and add complexity of amount of data spread across number of storage devices, this complexity becomes a massive web. And then availability of that data within the SLA to meet a model's requirement. Because if today, majority of the decision making is for day-to-day task management.
Right.
You may have some lag or latency that may be allowed. You're also seeing generative AI take place where you're getting into responses to customers, right?
Right.
That can't have major lag because that's a customer experience issue.
Right.
That time horizon becomes something that's very important to address and meet. Otherwise, you will have a customer challenge, right?
Right.
So the question really becomes the models have to evolve to be smarter in how they're thinking. The data storage devices have to be evolved in being able to respond in time, and the data has to be curated correctly to be able to answer that question in a proper manner.
Right.
So it's a triangle. I don't know if you see model technology evolving as quickly in what you're seeing to be able to keep up with the demands that are out there.
Agree to your point. So then, if we are talking about the scaling of the models, scaling of the infrastructure, do you think we are getting from the if an enterprise is processing of petabytes of data regularly, daily or monthly, so for the processing, we have solved already, industry has solved the problem for the process. But for the machine learning or the AI model, when we ingest the data, it takes huge time. If I just suppose building a one model and my regularly 1 GB or 1 terabyte of a data I'm generating, my CRM or ERP systems are generating or financial systems are generating, it's a huge processing powers is required, right? So what do you think? How can AI be manage these workloads in near future?
I think that we've evolved quite a bit. The chip vendors have evolved quite a bit to be able to provide the processing horsepower that's needed. Because at the end, one of the key components besides storage is compute, right? Actually, it's a bigger component. Till quantum comes, where hopefully it's nirvana to be able to create processing that becomes almost infinite in terms of speed compared to today. The question becomes, how do you keep up? And that's something that, again, is a give and take. It's a costly affair. Adding compute is no trivial matter.
Right.
When we're running our software, we're able to analyze over 1 billion files to curate and keep ready in, say, 72 hours. Now, that 72 hours may seem a lot, may seem amazing, depending on who you are. If I have 100 billion files, 72 hours may seem a lot because now I got to multiply. That's only with one engine. So then we expand that. What we decided to do was, okay, you create multiple parallel engines to run it.
Right.
So that you can scale. And now if I have 10 engines running, now that 100 billion became that much closer to that 72-hour mark versus 7,200.
Right.
And these are the things that we as software vendors are doing to help improve efficiency and take advantage of the automation that exists. The models are doing to help improve the way it is actually running the intelligence and the understanding of correlation.
Right.
On the back end, database vendors are improving to create graph level interactive so that you can correlate and use that to query. And then we have the compute and the hardware guys and the storage guys who are creating the underlying infrastructure to support the acceleration of this.
Right. So the next question, a bit sidewise. For the people or the students who are coming into the passing out recently or going to be passed out soon from the colleges, what one advice you want to give them? Being a founder of a company, what kind of a talent you are looking for?
Troubleshooters.
All right.
People who can think on their feet.
Okay.
If you think about, if I were coming out of college today, my mundane task job is not going to be there for me. A day-to-day job, a go and do A to B to C is going to be fully automated, definitely in the next 24 to 36 months. That can't be my career aspiration.
Okay.
Right? Because that's something, if I'm, let's say, for example, doing some of these administrative tasks, I can have AI write my letter today. I can have Copilot do things for me. I can go analyze data, for example, look at a resume as a hiring person and have AI filter that for me, right? That's something we were speaking about. You've actually written something against that in being able to sort through resumes to identify.
Right.
So those are the things I would say that don't focus on. Focus on how you can analyze and interpret to address and improve. So the delta is the accuracy of that AI model initially, maybe 10%, 20%, 30%. It's a regenerative training and the RAG management of it, right? If you can understand and learn how you can improve and enhance on an ongoing basis as needed, and what tweaks would work, is something that I highly recommend. My advice to most people that go into college nowadays is they say, what should we go study? My comment to them is always study data science because I think that that's the future and evolution, and study environmental studies because that's the only way humankind is going to survive. But the two of them are going to interact. To solve the environmental problem, we need the AI capabilities to be able to automate. So that's the advice.
So the people who are watching this podcast, if you are the troubleshooters, data dynamics is for you.
Absolutely. Listen, I think that any company benefits from people who have the right attitude, are go-getters, and have the right aptitude.
Right.
Everything else can be learned. We ourselves are machine learning proven over the evolutionary time horizon.
But the main thing is positive attitude towards the solution, solving the problem.
I think if you can solve problems, you can do anything that comes to your mind.
Right.
And, models are a reflection of human thought process. So if you can create troubleshooting capabilities through human understanding, you can implement them into how models think and understand and train themselves.
Right. And do you think people should start building some of the good application in their college side as a project?
Yeah, as much hands-on training that you can get, the better.
Right.
I think the more you can be, what do they used to call it? Those technical schools or trade schools are going to be more prevalent.
Right.
The question of do I really need a 4-year or 6-year college degree comes into question in today's world.
Right.
Can I go to a trade school, learn something that's specialized, implement it into the technology automation that exists, becomes something that I'm sure every kid, every parent is going to ask, considering the cost of schooling that exists nowadays.
So Piyush, the next thing is there are separate the separate set of a people in the industry: regulators, compliance officers, CISOs, CDOs. They always very think more about on their data side. What is your take on this, and how that is your products that you are building, and how you are solving this problem in Zubin?
So what we find with enterprises is multiple constituents that need access to the data.
Right.
You'll have legal teams, you'll have compliance teams, you'll have storage teams from an infrastructure standpoint. You will have CDOs from a data governance standpoint.
Right.
You will have CISOs from an access management and security standpoint. And then you have lines of business who actually want to run models to take advantage. What we typically find is each one works in somewhat of a silo in terms of the tooling they're using to manage and curate the data to be able to be used.
Right.
What we've done with Zubin is taken that and said, okay, let's break the silos. Let's scan once, read many in terms of being able to analyze the data, create risk profiles from a CISO standpoint, create a classification understanding or lack of classification from a CDO standpoint, understand the underlying utilization or underutilization or duplication of data from a storage standpoint. So your views are based on your roles.
Right.
Now, what we've done is taken that one step further in saying, at the end, the data is owned by data owners in an organization today. To make them better custodians of the data that they're managing, the data owners need to take the actions, not only central functions. Everything we talked about today are central functions.
Central functions.
So we allow them to set the policies, we allow the data owners to actually execute on them. And what that does is think about a line of business, wealth management in a bank,
Right.
investment banking arm. Each will write their own models.
Exactly.
Each will want to run their own models against proprietary data sets that it has access to.
Right.
So curation of what should it have access to, what is within that data set, understanding how to classify it in terms of privacy as well as additional capabilities to query, and then whether to use or not use by the model, are all things we do to help prep.
Right.
Now what happens is based on the data owner who's accessing it, they can run the model, but also use the policies that are created to govern that data.
Right.
So that you're not just proliferating the models against all and everything that's out
So
there.
it is like some government has issued some guidelines or some regulatory, passed some regulations for the banking or healthcare. And it just use those documents and convert into the policies automatically, and then a human validate it. And
I wish we would convert it automatically.
okay.
We are not there yet.
Okay.
It's something we're working on. Regulatory or non-regulatory, the process today applies. Regulatory is a predecessor to determine what the policies should be.
Okay.
Right? Today, the policies are set by the institution themselves, meaning the enterprise that's running our software. What you're talking about is, you'll have governments are setting at a pace that's unbelievable, but data sovereignty requirements.
Oh,
right?
okay.
Where they're saying the data of my citizen is such of natural interest that it should never leave my physical boundaries.
Right.
Now that's easy to say, hard to put into a non-geographic digital world.
Exactly.
Right? There's no digital boundary.
Yes.
So the ability to analyze the data, the ability to classify it, whether it has information about an Indian citizen, so you don't violate the DPDP Act that India laid last year. Does it have the ability to meet financial regulatory requirement like DORA?
Yeah.
Europe, if it has a transaction that took place in euros, it has to be segregated in terms of the data, right? So these are all types of regulations. There's over 50 countries today that are putting these national sovereignty laws into place,
Yes.
which means 50 physical boundaries to digital data sets,
Right.
which is very hard, especially if you're a global enterprise. We have customers that are in 30, 40, 50 countries. That means that you're curating the data and managing it so that you create those boundaries across each of them.
Across each cluster.
Yeah. And then when you think of it, not just from an enterprise, I say this, people always think enterprise, but think healthcare and national sovereignty. Today, if you could capture data, every citizen of a country, right, you would have access in certain cases to so much medical information that you could create a virus or something that actually attacks that population or a subset of that population and has much more damage than throwing a missile.
Right.
That's why these protection of that data becomes so essential.
I agree.
In today's world, a lot of countries are starting to put together genomic data of their citizens.
Right.
Imagine giving access to that or losing access to that.
Right.
In the wrong hands, that can be just as dangerous as it is powerful to create drugs and other things that will allow longevity of humankind.
Right.
So, when you go back and take a step back and say, breaking the silos, it's important that corporations break the silos because data is an asset at an aggregate level. But it's also important to make sure that government regulations are taken into account to manage the privacy and protection of the citizens, because that's an imperative aspect to what we believe is data democratization.
Right. Agree. Okay. So, Piyush, you have worked with a n number of organizations. Organizations, I say, enterprise, right? Banks, security companies, storage companies, right? Cloud providers. You've worked with them. So, what is the first thing that comes in your mind when you pitch your product to them? And why you start the Zubin? What was the key point for that to start this? Because this is the space that you are building the Zubin or trying to solve the problem has some multiple level of boundaries. One is, suppose I'm a global bank. I run as a CISO or some compliance officer. Might be my documents in Arabic areas, in Arabic languages, Gulf areas, right? In European, we have the multiple languages. In India, we have the Hindi as a common language, or if you go into the regional, there are banking documents, regional system, right? How you are solving this problem? Because it's a major problem. When we say we can stop the data at our data centers, suppose if it is a customer from India, we can put the data in India centers. But how you're solving your one model to across the globe?
It's a good question. So first of all, Zubin's evolution comes from market need,
Okay.
not just internal thought. We speak quite often to our customers and understand the challenges and then determine where's commonality. And what we saw was a lack of understanding of the data, both from a metadata perspective as well as a content perspective.
Okay.
And then as AI really proliferated into front and center, the question became, I want to use data.
Right.
Okay, what data? What is it? What can I use? What can I not use? All these questions started to come up.
Right.
So the ability of Zubin to address that and filter through the process from metadata to content to classification and then actionability became the natural evolution.
Okay.
Now, when you think about companies and customers that we deal with, as I mentioned, they are proliferated across geographies, from Saudi to the UAE, from a MENA region standpoint, to India, China, right, on the Asia side, to Western Europe, and then the US, Mexico, Canada, and then South America, as well as Africa. The question becomes, how do you make something work for all?
Right.
The answer today is you don't. What we've done is said, okay, the 80-20 rule, where's the larger percentage of the market that we're focused on, and how do we address it?
Okay.
What we've done is taken the models that we've built within the product and made them specific to, say, a language, or made them multilingual that support it,
Okay.
but then need to be trained on it. And again, this is that evolution. So the question really becomes going to customers and being honest about the evolution of not just our product, but where the industry is.
Right.
Everybody says, oh, you can use models and solve the problem. Yeah, but the accuracy of that model may be so minimal that you have to do some work with it.
Right.
To give it a validation, right? False negative, false positive,
Right.
or valid. And that's an interactive process. And then it's self-learning.
Yes.
But that self-learning requires human input. So we don't solve world peace today. We help you towards world peace in terms of data management, but it's a journey we go on with our customers. And the customers are also pretty savvy in knowing that this is a process.
Right.
We're not going to be able to address every country and every language that country has in nuances. But can we address 90%? Maybe that's good enough today. Maybe 80% is good enough, depending on the country and the company that we're working with.
Right. So Piyush, what are the best practices that an organization to go with the AI? Okay. And the next is, if any organization is automate everything with the AI. Okay. Is it good to automate everything with the AI or over-engineered? Or how the organizations are making balance into it?
I think that everybody's goal and dream is to automate everything with AI.
Okay.
I also think that there is an overpromise within the C-suite to the boards, including CEOs down to their management team.
Great.
Where is AI? Where is AI? Where is AI in our organization? Because of the hype, media, every day you're reading AI as the first and front and center.
Right.
The challenge becomes that the reality of that evolution is still early, as I mentioned. So it's being practical. What I would say is a model 2 years ago probably was far less accurate than a model today.
Right.
Because of the data set that they're playing with and how they've enhanced and tweaked.
Mm-hmm.
Models 2 years from now will be far, far more accurate.
Agree.
I also believe that SLMs, or small language models, will proliferate much greater for organizations. So if you're going on that journey, find models that are specific to your industry, maybe even specific to your workloads and departments.
Right.
Rather than going for the big bang. Because the big bang then needs to be curated. Whereas this may be pre-tuned or fine-tuned to a better accuracy level. Right? Because it's all about learning. At the end, it's about that integration and learning. And if you let yourself evolve as an organization to become AI-centric, you will gain much more rather than forcing it on. Right. Because you're going to have to let it become part of your culture and your ethos. That the first thing you think about is, how do I leverage intelligence? How do I leverage machine learning to create a better outcome, quicker outcome that has a business benefit?
All right.
My question back to you, Antrixsh, on the evolution that you're saying we should, you're asking me what a company should do. In terms of model evolution, how quickly are models coming up to speed? And where do you see the technology of the underlying models 3 years from now? Or let's say by 5 years from now?
Okay. So right now, whatever the machine learning model that industry is using, it's not a self-audited models. Everything we lead the human in the loop to audit it, whether it's correct or wrong. False positive, false negative, as simple as that. What I see 3 years, 5 years down the line with these models will be the self-audited. Definitely, that time also a human will be required to validate, because in the enterprises, or specifically if I just talk about healthcare, we cannot 100% sure onto the machines, right? But the self-auditing models will be required for the industry that can fix few things at their own.
Do you see the need for compute reducing by making models more efficient?
Yes. Right now, if we think I have to build my own SLM, or if I want to build my LLM, I need a huge infrastructure for that. But if somehow we can solve it onto the grassroots compute level to fine tuning it, to get the better output, to handling some PII leaks or PHI leaks onto the model that can solve our problems, that is more useful. But onto the hardware side, definitely, I think we have to be think on that when we are trying to build any models or fine tuning any models. Though cloud provides everything to us, it's a single click access for the GPU. You just click 3, 4 clicks and your GPU infrastructure and the high end infrastructure is ready to play it around it. But for every organization, putting this much of amount onto the infrastructure,
Expensive.
it's very expensive. And if you solve this problem by working onto the some mathematical computation side of the model, definitely we can solve the infrastructure issue as well as we can build more accurate and more fine-tuned models that can run on our CPU.
Sure. What's interesting is, I think the business advantages that companies had completely changed with AI, because somebody sitting in a garage, before you could say they could code.
Right.
Now they can code at 10x, 20x, 30x because they're leveraging a ton of AI to generate that code,
Right.
and could disrupt any business much quicker and faster. And I think that's an interesting phenomenon that at least keeps me up and probably keeps a lot of CEOs up.
Right. I have seen the people or the college students, they're generating the graphic.
Yeah.
They are creating a very fancy, quirky UI, UX designs for the websites, everything by using the few OpenAI LLMs using that. But it's very fast we evolve it. Earlier we have a cycle, we draw sketches on the screen or on the paper, then we go for the approval, this button will come here, this button will come here, and then start going for the UX team, then they check the color palettes, they see the color combination. It's a long process. But if I just write my prompt very fine-tuned, it can give me an entire idea how my web page looks like in the future, right? And it's very useful.
Yeah.
It's saving the time, though we require the massaging and everything onto the code side. It's not 100% perfect, but it's saving the time of the developers and the organizations as well that I'm seeing.
Yeah. Good and bad, right? It creates agility, but it will be very disruptive if you are a legacy business. So I think the speed of innovation has increased multifold and will continue to increase even more so because of AI.
Right. Okay, so Piyush, it was an incredible discussion with you to know more about the data security and the data management. It helps me to grow myself in this space, though. I'm a data scientist. I build the models, grab the data, train the model, get the output, increase accuracy. But there are a few things that is very knowledgeable for me in this discussion, but how we can more optimize towards security and the data governance in our data model.
It's a marriage, right? You're the model builder. We're the data curator. We can't live without you, and you can't live without us. We may have disagreements at times on how it works, but we find a path forward.
And you asked me what you see 3 years, 5 years. What is your vision to 3 years, 5 years down the line? How the AI will be?
So our belief is that the entire data management systems that exist today, a lot of it are policy driven, that are human generated.
All right.
We believe that policies will become auto generated through AI. Basically, it itself will say, based on what's the requirement, I will create the policy. I will then implement the policy. I will then execute on that policy. And I will keep that loop going on. And in the back end, as you said, as AI models start to govern themselves and improve on their own, you're going to have that automation kick in. So we expect an autonomous data management layer to come into the play. We also expect, like you said, AI governance to become generative in a way. And third, we believe human intervention will always be there, whether it's on the data management side or the AI model side, at least for the foreseeable future.
Right.
The question becomes making sure that we are being proper custodians of the data that we're managing.
Okay.
And ensuring that we're meeting not just regulatory requirements, but data privacy requirements, data ethical requirements in terms of how we safeguard that data for people and for institutions.
All right. Nice. So it was a nice discussion with Mr. Piyush. So if you have any questions or queries, or if you are a troubleshooter, put the things in comments. Like this podcast. Thank you so much. Me, Antrixsh Gupta, signing off.